Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the IVES number CS115-25 US10B crash stop, a very typical piece of hardware that has been sold countless times to countless people, using a crash chain as a means by which to prevent a door from being hyperextended past where they want it to stop, prevent it from crashing into a wall or a dumpster, or just past a point where it no longer needs to move, swing wildly into, human traffic that might be occurring there as well. And this is what it looks like. All of the IVES crash chains are the same concept. They are a reasonably commercial duty chain. They are brass base plates that are in different finishes. They have a dual arresting spring system that's here. Okay, so as I pull that down, apparently I'm not strong enough to affect much movement on it. Little stuck together it is. Let's take a closer look at that. And really the first time that the door is cycled through, it will relax that. And what we basically have here are two of these pieces of wire that are hooked over. If you were to push those out together, you could feed that through and disassemble this. And the only reason that I've done that is because I want to modify the length of the chain. They make these in three different sizes: 20.5, 25.5, and 30.5. And that is related to the width of the door, which we're going to go over. This happens to be the 25.5, which happens to be the most common size because you're going to use it on 3-foot doors. What's not real common is the oil rubbed bronze finish here. Generally these are just in zinc or in a satin chrome type color. This is an oil rubbed bronze. I would prefer if they made the vinyl sleeve in black when it was oil rubbed mounting brackets. They don't. They're only gray. The screws are included in a complementary finish. And the 25.5 inch, that is a dimension really, in an overall sense, now we'll just hold it up, end to end is what's 25.5 inch. A little bit closer to 26, I suppose. But nonetheless, that's what size this is. Now, let's switch to the screen view, and let's take a look and see why you would want the 25.5 inch, or why you wouldn't. So let's do that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the item that we are looking at. Before we dive into the extended description information, let's take a look at some photographs that we have. That's the packaging, the label, the unit itself with the sleeve pulled back so you can see the spring. A little close-up view there. And again. The backside, that's going to be a piece of cast brass is what that is. Showing you the chain. Now I have had these fail on clients. I've literally had them order several cases of crash chains, and there was a substantial amount of failure on these. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because throughout this process, this client was in Europe. Not that it matters that they're in Europe. It matters because when we got to the end of it, it did matter, actually. The client was knowingly installing these on doors that weighed 780 pounds. And after countless emails back and forth saying, the spring is not going to withstand the potential force that will be applied on it with a door with such mass. It's just, this chain is not meant for that. It has a hard enough time handling a commercial grade door, a 125-pound door in a reasonable moderate wind. And the client assured me that it was okay. He was going to use them, and sure enough, we brought in several cases of this material, shipped it to Europe, And sure enough, a week later, hey, these chains are breaking. Right, yes, they are. They literally broke at the welds, literally. And, unfortunately had to contact the factory and tell them the designed application was 780 pounds, and the client's asking for a response from the factory as to why these crash chains failed. And it became an issue in their area was because there was no chance to send those back. It wasn't worth the cost. There was no chance to buy more. It wasn't going to be worth the cost. There was no reasonable answer for this. The point of me saying all of that is a crash chain is a Band-Aid at best. People will use them when they're really not intended to use them, and they will fail. They do work, except when you have an excessive application, whether the weight of the door is extreme or the use on the door will be extreme, such as the amount of wind that will be applied to the door. If you have an exterior door that swings out and you're going to have your door swing out, and you have a car that backs into it, okay, that's going to break the chain or break the installation. If you have an extremely windy event, that's going to break it as well. If you have somebody that pushes the door, hyperextends it, it's going to break the chain. Generally what happens is, here's what I've seen, the failures that I have seen is not so much the weld breaking, except in that one case where there was no chance the crash chain would work. I have seen the screws pulled out of the door, and I have seen the staple, what looks like a staple, this literally sheared. This broke right here. Generally, you'll see the screws get torn out of the door because they've just been installed with these sheet metal screws that are included with it, which, is a recipe for disaster to begin with. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not a fan of the crash chain concept, because if the goal is to prevent damage and injury, damage to property and injury to people, not in that order, a crash chain is a fingers crossed sort of solution, because there are proper items for this sort of problem. And that's, IVES doesn't make those, but their sister company, Glenn Johnson, does. And we can take a look very quickly at Glenn Johnson. They're known for overhead stops and holders. And these are the pieces of equipment that are literally meant to do the job of stopping the door and frame. Okay? Like this. A slide track, basically, is what it is. This is the product meant for doing the job. A crash chain really just simply is not. So, we've talked about this unit's downfall and what you would use in place of this. Where you would use it is, you want to keep the door from going out too far. And, it's worked for you in the past, and you'll install another one. And they're relatively cheap and relatively simple to install. Let's look at the extended description information that is here. Bracket size, they give that at 1 9/16 by 1 9/16. I didn't measure that, but there you go. Recommended for a 36-inch door, 25.5-inch length is. Tear-resistant gray vinyl cover. Heavy-duty compression spring assembled to both ends of the chain and end brackets. That's true. Packed with sheet metal screws, cast brass brackets with welded solid steel chain. At a minimum, I suggest that you consider ordering sex bolts. Through bolting it through the door will very likely resolve the very first severe event that this crash chain will be put to in terms of a test. This is oil rub bronze, which is the US10B here. Now there is a product brochure. Let's take a look at that. That's going to quickly talk about the different lengths that you'll use and where they're intended for. 20.5 for 30-inch doors, 25.5 for 36, 30.5 for 42. Okay? At that point, you can kind of play with your points of installation to accommodate your requirements. You can take up some of the chain if you have a door that's 2 foot, for some reason. And available only in 2 finishes, oil rub bronze and a satin chrome finish. Now, there's also a link below this video to the installation instructions. Let's take a look at this. This is an admittedly confused and confusing drawing from the manufacturer. They admit that it's very confusing to look at. Some of IVES drawn items are confusing in this regard. What they're showing here is a plan view, as if you're looking down through the top of the header, which is shown here. This is looking at the door in an elevation view, this area here. The bottom line is, from the edge of the door, on the face of the door, let's look at this. This is an image sent to me by a client that was asking me if I had these, but it illustrated where someone has mounted something, and albeit far too close to the center of the door, way too far in. That when you open that door, your head is going to hit this. You're going to want to tuck that back over so that it hangs down here a little bit better. So this is in general what it looks like. The A dimension from the edge of the door to the center line of your mounting point is on the door, is based on the chain that you've ordered. 10 inch, 14 1/4, or 18 1/2. The B dimension, they're measuring that from the, what is, kind of the jam to where your first hole is going to start. Again, that's predicated on the length of the chain that you've ordered. Okay? So that's your guideline, and it needs to kind of look just like this when you're done. You'll want to mark those holes off. This should be tucked way back over here, and that is probably too far away. But that's how you go about installing these. I suggest that you have someone help you, hold it up, and then do a reality check. Cycle the door open and closed and make sure that it's out of the way and still effective. If it's too far close to anything, it's not going to permit you to really get the desired effect. Plus, where you locate this material is going to determine your degree of stop. So you're going to need to use these dimensions as a guideline, because they're not telling you, if you want a 90-degree stop, use this dimension. If you want a 120-degree, use this dimension. So you'll have to do some reality checking on the installation before you proceed. The bottom line, however, is that this is a guideline as to how to go about installing it. I'm not going to talk about this drawing any further because I don't want to run the risk of further confusion. Now, they can do sex bolts for these, or through bolts. Their 1024 is the size, number 10 machine screw is what they're talking about. And you can come up with acorn nuts, or nuts and washers to through bolt that yourself. Let's take a look at the product catalog and also the price list to see if we can come up with part numbers for these alternate fasteners. However, dimensions A and B are for installations to steel door frames with dimensions as shown. And if you're going to install it down to a steel door, make sure that it's reinforced. It's very unlikely that you're going to have reinforcing exactly where you want it, but it's also likely that you will. If your door is closer reinforced, which it likely is, you'll have some reinforcing there. My suggestion is that you through bolt it immediately. And I say that because of the quantity of times I've seen them fail, meaning getting ripped out of the face of the door. The chain's still intact, but the screws were literally pulled out, allowing an eruption sort of feature to the face of the door where those screws used to be. So below this video here is a link to the manufacturer's page. And when you click on that, the manufacturer's page will load. Let's take a look at our product catalog. And I don't think the fasteners are going to be in here, but let's do a find function for CS115. Control F. That will bring us to the page. It's a summary of what we've already looked at. Yeah, nothing else in there. Let's take a look at the price list and see if there's any evidence of what those part numbers would be. Okay, so let's search for CS115. And realistically, by the time you're seeing this, this price list will be well out of date. Okay, so here we go. The CS115 through bolt and cap nut package set of 4 is this part number. Be mindful, they only offer it in a chrome finish. If you have oil rubbed, you can get the screws, naturally the through bolts, but it will not match the finish. I find it hard to believe that a set of 4 has a list price of $9.50, but that's what they're showing it as. And I do not see a package of sex bolts for this, which is not surprising. However, I would think that the sex bolts for their male slots would work, because that's probably a number 10 screw. And the 620, 621, those are indeed male slots. So I wouldn't be surprised to learn that the 09-355 613 oil rubbed would be a compatible set of sex bolts. Now, through bolts or sex bolts? Well, the through bolt's just a machine screw that allows you to bolt it through the door. A sex bolt's a different animal. And what I mean by that is a sex bolt is the female portion of it is shaped like this with internal threads. Then, of course, the machine bolt comes through here. Now, the reason the sex bolt is different is because the length from the underside of the head to the end of the sex bolt is a particular length. And that's to prevent, when you have your door and the bolt is installed here, you run that female portion through the door, okay, as you tighten the bolt, as you tighten it, you won't crush the door in, because the shoulder here rests against the inside face of the steel. I do have a match here in the site for the sex bolts. And I do have a video here where you might want to review. Where I'm clearly talking at length about the sex bolts for that. So you might be able to determine if these are correct. If you're really not too concerned and you just want it through bolted, well, you know, then there you go. You're going to order the through bolt package listed earlier, which is the 09340 626. And if I sell 1,000 crash chains, one of them is oil rubbed. So the fact that they don't offer it in that finish is not surprising really at all. Okay, the 604 finish down here would be for, forgive me, I was completely ignoring the fact that right below it is the sex bolt package. You were probably all yelling at the video. Let's take a look. Got it. Okay, so they list it for the SB453, which is a surface bolt. So, having said that, there you go. So that is the part number for the sex bolts. I would encourage you to order the sex bolts, assuming that you have an 1 3/4 thick door. And the 604, before I discovered we were talking about the sex bolt, that is literally just in a like a zinc type finish. Okay, so you can do through bolts or sex bolts. 1 3/4 doors, go with the sex bolt. It's a better option. Sorry about that long way around discovering that both are indeed available. Now, also on the manufacturer's page that we pulled up, you can view all of the IVES products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation here. You can also view the IVES website and then their full product catalog again. Other encyclopedic documents are also kept on this page, such as the pivot catalog, the templates, installation instructions, technical manual. Lots of important documents as it pertains to IVES and Allegion are kept here. For fun, I have an IVES catalog from 1904 and one from 1896. You won't find crash chains in either one of those because historically IVES was really thought of by contractors and carpenters and installers as a company who made window hardware. Double hung windows, casement locks, sash locks, sash lifts, ventilating locks. Very common. This would allow you to open your lower sash to a particular degree, allowing a ventilation feature, but not so high as to permit someone to crawl through. IVES has discontinued these. Someone else must make these. I believe that someone does that I know of. Used to sell them all the time. all the time. So if you want to see what they were making 120 years ago, here it is. Some of this material is still made. Casement fastener like this. This is still made today. Very little change, if at all. Sash poles and pull-down hooks. When's the last time you saw one of those? I would have been in grammar school in 1978 in Chicago Public Schools, where all of the classroom doors had transoms above. Beautiful, what I now know to be quartered red oak casework, doors, stile and rail. The building was built in 1928, something of that range, in that era. Mortise bolts, they still make these. They look a little bit different now, but the concept is the same. Great stuff. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, why would you use the crash chain? Like I said, it's inexpensive and easy to install. Is it foolproof? Absolutely not. It's not going to be a foolproof in a very windy application or a vandalistic, abusive car backed into it. It's not going to survive. Those slide tracks by Glenn Johnson are certainly always a superior option, if not only for the fact that they are designed to take the kind of stress, how they're mounted to the door and frame. Very heavy bolts, bolted through the door, prepped into the steel frame with templated machine screws, reinforced. But they're elegant as well. You don't have a big giant chain hanging on your door all the time. You know, you don't have that all the time. So depending on how it's installed, it could be unsightly at a minimum and a hazard at a potential maximum. So be mindful. I would not consider these life safety in terms of, not life safety, but you have a small strip mall and you have doors that, exterior emergency egress doors that swing out onto a walkway. I wouldn't count on the wind not grabbing that door, taking that 21 square feet and just ripping it open. This won't survive that with someone behind it. I've had people call and say, yeah, I need to do something better because I just damaged my hardware because the crash chain ripped out of the door. He says, well, how windy was it? He says, yeah, it was pretty bad. So the screws came out, the door kept going, and damaged the hardware. Another person almost cracked their glass. A third person, it hit someone. Anyway, be mindful. Use them where you think they're going to work. Any questions on the CS115 crash chain, 25.5 inch by IVES, or any other IVES product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.